From Music City, USA, it's David Hooper and Music Business Radio.
From Nashville, Tennessee, this is Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the music business. I'm David Hooper, your host, and with me today, I've got two guests today. Bauer and Joe Kustelski from Etix are here. Welcome, guys.
Hi. Hello.
So, Joe, you are the CEO
of Etix, correct.
And Brian, you are the Director of Sales and Marketing at Rockhouse Partners.
Yep, correct.
A division of Etix.
Exactly, yeah. We're the digital marketing arm.
So you're the digital marketing arm, and Joe, I'm going to let you explain what Etix is.
Sure. Etix is a primary ticketing company, so we work with venues, arenas, amphitheaters, clubs, fairs, and festivals, and we provide their primary ticketing solution. So that means we help them sell tickets online, and we help them sell tickets in the box office.
So the stats I had, 50 million tickets per year, is that correct?
Correct.
7,300 venues.
Correct.
And there's some impressive names. You guys have worked with Lollapalooza, X Games, Churchill Downs, Nashville Predators, and several NASCAR and Formula One tracks.
Yep.
Any others that come to mind?
Well, actually, one of our clients, Austin 360 Amphitheater down in Austin, they were just named by Polestar the best new major music venue in the country. That was a great win for them. It was pretty awesome for us to help them out with that one. And in addition to that, every big and small, beer festivals, various sporting events, really just kind of runs the gamut. And what's cool about Rockhouse Partners being a part of Etix and our relationship with them is that, we work with Etix clients, but we also work with non-Etix clients. So you don't necessarily have to sell your ticket with Etix. So we'll work with Ticketmaster, Ticketfly, Eventbrite, you name it, and we kind of know it. So it's part of our business to be ticketing experts.
So regardless of how the tickets are sold, you're going to help them sell them.
Yep, exactly.
This is Music Business Radio, but you mentioned some venues that are not necessarily music venues. Is there a difference when you do marketing for a music show and, let's say, a Formula One race?
Well, to be honest, actually a lot of these events, a lot of these sporting events have become kind of like music festivals unto themselves. The Formula One race this past year just had Pitbull, say what you will about, Pitbull, but they still, the place was packed. Some of these other NASCAR events, they've had Kid Rock and, Luke Bryan, and, so it's become so much more than just a race for these guys.
And I would agree with Brian. I think that the what used to be a one-day race or maybe 2 days of racing has now become a weekend of entertainment experiences. So in addition to, races on the track on maybe Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon, now you've got concerts that fill in a lot of different gaps. You've got pre-race, post-race entertainment. Anything you can do to help you sell more tickets, to give people a reason to say, you know what, here's my hard-earned money. I want to come see your event. So it's going to continue to grow.
I think that's a great way to look at it as an entertainment event. So often musicians that come through Music Business Radio or elsewhere, they think it's about the music. But to the average person, it's really not about music so much as it is being entertained.
I would agree. And also just the changing landscape has created some additional opportunities. So it used to be that when you were just simply, for example, selling a Formula One race, you only had the fans of Formula One auto racing. Now it gives you a number of different reasons to reach out to a different cross-section of fans. And basically, it's going to help you fill your venue.
I want to take it back in your career, guys. We're mentioning some big venues, certainly Churchill Downs, Formula One, NASCAR. It's the biggest of the big when it comes to ticketing. How did you guys get here where you're working with companies and organizations that big? Did you start in music or was it other live events?
So my background, if I can start, my first job was with a company called City Search. And City Search had an office here in Nashville, and they were acquired by Ticketmaster. And it was a classic story. I think a lot of people ended up this way in the mid-'90s, where I moved out to the Ticketmaster City Search corporate offices. And they walked through one day, and they said, "Hey, who wants to code?" And I raised my hand, and they handed me a book. And next thing you knew, I was coding software. And so I coded software for a year or two, and then worked in a number of startups. Fast forward about 8 or 9 years forward, I was working for a local company called Echo. They were acquired by Ticketmaster, I think, on my first day. So again, I was working for Ticketmaster.
Can't get away from it.
Can't get away from Ticketmaster.
A lot of artists feel that way.
I know. I feel that way a little bit as well now that Etix competes directly with Ticketmaster. So when Live Nation and Ticketmaster merged, they closed down our agency here in Nashville, and that's when we started Rockhouse Partners. And the idea idea behind Rockhouse Partners was we were going to take everything that we had been doing on the artist side and start putting those tools and those services to work for venues.
And Brian, you've also been involved with ticketing for a while.
Yeah, well, actually, I've got a kind of a unique experience. I mean, before I was very, very music business. I mean, I had marketing gigs at RCA, Universal, MTV, kind of as I was in college and just after. And then I had the opportunity to tour. So I was playing music. So for me, touring and managing a band where I did that for about 3 years, got to a pretty great point where it was definitely paying for itself, which is, we weren't necessarily making a ton of bucks, but, we actually signed to Simeon Records, which is Elijah Wood's record label, got to showcase for Interscope and do a lot of like cool, amazing experiences. But again, to pay the bills, I had to be doing some digital marketing on the side because it was something easy to do while I was remote and on the road. This was when I was living in Manhattan. So when I was there, I was kind of running my own little boutique agency, and then decided, I think that paying $3,000 for a 400 square foot apartment was, had my fill, and was ready to kind of check out what else was out there. And I'd played shows here in Nashville. I'd played 12th and Porter, and I'd played Mercy Lounge, and I fell in love with this city. And to me and my wife and my dog, we decided to, kind of just make a go at it. And so we moved out here about 2.5 years ago now. And so now at Rockhouse, I'm the director of sales and marketing there, and I help co-manage the agency. And it's been a perfect marriage, I think, for me of the music marketing side of things and the digital marketing side of things. And it's just kind of been a happy marriage.
You're listening to Music Business Radio. Your backstage pass to the music business. I'm David Hoop, your host, and with me, Brian Bauer. He's the director of sales and marketing for Rockhouse Partners, and also Joe Kustelski, CEO of Etix. Brian, let's take it back to when you were on the road.
Sure.
Because I think any musician who's on the road, you're also a marketing guy. You're not just a musician.
Yeah.
And I'd love to know about how you marketed those live shows when you were on the road, and also how you sold the tickets.
A lot of that was just talking with the venues beforehand and really trying to develop those relationships, because next time you're in town, they're going to show you a little bit more love if they know you by name. Working with the band that I was in, we were a pretty memorable group to begin with. We were kind of like late 60s, early 70s rock, very like Queen, over the top, yellow, like very dramatic. And so we were not, coming down playing Kansas and or like random kind of places and just really sticking out. But I think that for us to sell more tickets, and nowadays it's very interesting to kind of work with artists for venues and kind of activating them a little bit. And by that, I'm kind of getting at just making it easy for the entertainers to help sell tickets.
One of the things that attracted us to Brian was the fact that he's got the heart of an artist, but the brain of a marketer. He had done, during the interview process, he mentioned that he had done warehouse parties where he had gotten brands to help pony up to cover the bill. And that kind of scrappy grassroots mentality, that's critical for everybody in the business right now. And so I think that was, one of the areas that we really, we bonded around.
Joe, I'd agree with you, but I also see a lot of artists that feel it's the venue's responsibility to sell tickets.
I think it's hand in hand, in my opinion. When I was kind of in the more artist space and playing and had the relationships with artists that were kind of like my peers, I think we all kind of looked at it as the room's not going to necessarily fill itself. You kind of know if all you're doing is sending a few posters in advance of your show and they're throwing it up, it's like you're kind of shooting blind, I think, and just sort of spraying and praying.
Yep. So the way that we look at this from the Etix standpoint and with the digital marketing piece that we've acquired, we see the live event as a terrific collaboration point for the promoter, the artist, the venue, and the fan. And I think that type of thinking is what we try to ingrain in our ticketing products and services and also in our digital marketing products and services. I think one thing that Rockhouse does well is really understands how the brand, the fan, and the venue form a triangle. And like in many cases, if it's a sponsored event, all three benefit, when you get as many people in the room as possible. And so that's one of our ongoing business goals.
How big does somebody have to be to work with you guys?
On the ticketing side, we work with a number of food and wine festivals. They're typically fairly high end, but they might only have several hundred participants. Beer festivals might have 500 to 1,000. And then we work all the way up to arenas, of 30,000 or more.
Let's say I'm a band and I've got 1,000 CDs in my trunk and I'm playing a 100-seat club. Too early?
Too early. Also, just we typically don't work directly with the artist. We work with the artist to help fill the venue, but working with an artist to help them solo is typically not something that we do. Our clients are venues or events by and large. Or promoters.
Right. Well, we've got a lot of listeners to Music Business Radio that are that 1,000 in the trunk level. When we come back, I want to talk to you guys about how we can get them up to a level where they're going to work for you, get some strategies that they can use to sell more tickets, get more people to their shows, and make more money. David Hooper here. You're listening to Music Business Radio. I've got two guests today, Brian Bauer, Director of Sales and Marketing at Rockhouse Partners, and also Joe Kustelski, CEO of Etix. More from these guys when we come back on Music Business Radio.
Hey, this is Emerson Hart from Tonic, and you're listening to Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the biz.
Lightning 100's 6th Annual Music City Mayhem Tournament is on the air. The judges pick the 32 participants from 340 submissions. Now you pick the daily winners. During round 1, we'll play 2 brackets of bands a day. Listen weekdays at 9 a.m., noon, 3, and 6 p.m. Then go to lightning100.com to vote for the song you like best. The biggest vote getter in each bracket will go on to the next round. The 6th Annual Music City Mayhem Tournament, presented by Regions Bank, sponsored by Jackalope Brewing Company, Soundstage Studios, collegebookrenter.com, and Lightning 100.
Don't you cry, dry your eyes, I'll be there in the morning.
Hey, this is Courtney J, and you're listening to Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the biz.
You're listening to Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the music business. I'm David Hooper, your host, and with me today I've got two guests. Brian Bauer, Director of Sales and Marketing for Rockhouse Partners. Clients include Lollapalooza, X Games, Churchill Downs, Keith Urban, and the Nashville Predators. Also, Joe Kustelski, CEO of Etix. We're talking about how to sell more tickets. So guys, let's say I'm in an upcoming band, trying to book some shows, maybe I've got some shows. Help these guys out. How can they sell more tickets and make that process easier?
Honestly, I would say that the absolute number one thing that sells tickets better than any other digital platform is email. A lot of folks tend to think that it's social, like Facebook and Twitter, but our take is that, Facebook could change their policy tomorrow. You're kind of just renting those fans, if you will. And with email, the conversion on being able to push that messaging directly to an inbox, being able to convert a ticket, just kind of delivers across all the venues that we work with.
One of the things about email, it's nice because you can time shift it. Email, if I get one right now, it's going to be in my box tomorrow morning, next week. Twitter, if you're not there, like right there, within 5 seconds, you're going to miss it.
From a ticket sales standpoint, we know, and as much as we would like to think social drives more ticket sale conversions, this is simply not the case. I mean, typically it's less than 5% of all ticketing transactions for any live event.
Should people worry about that? Should they just ditch Twitter?
You know what? If they're into Twitter, if they're into Facebook, it can be a great channel for driving engagement. Part of your content story is going to share better on, conversationally on social media than on any other channel. But when it really comes time to cultivate an audience and convert them into a ticket sale or into a sale of recorded music or merchandise, email is always going to have the best ROI.
Okay, so how can people build the list?
Number of artists. I mean, I guess, when we were talking earlier just about whose responsibility it is to fill the room. Well, I mean, certainly the venue's got a responsibility, but the best artists convert as many people who are in the room into email address. So I know Wade Bowen does the Texas circuit, and he always does a great job of just asking everybody for their email address, and then he gets up on stage and he gives away free merchandise if you put your email address into a bucket. And it's something that simple, but just think about it. If the average person buys 2 or 3 tickets, you don't have an email address for half of the people, more than half of the people in the room. So your job, we call it the unknown ticket holder, and one of the things that you can do is work with the venue, work with the promoter to get as many email addresses from people who did not buy tickets that you don't have an email address for. People who walked up, you don't have an email address for them.
I think that's one of the big mistakes that we've seen with music marketing online. For a long time, if you remember mp3.com, millions and millions of songs downloaded. Some artists had millions and millions of their songs downloaded personally. I know more than a few that got major label deals, some indie deals that sold in the dozens or even hundreds because they couldn't reach out to those people again.
Yeah.
Once they were gone, they were gone.
They're gone.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would just like to kind of talk about the power of email again, just by the numbers, right?
Sure.
So just a good kind of example, when taking a look at email, it's also really important to take into account kind of the value of a single email address. One example that we did, recently we were promoting a Kenny Chesney show and also a Zach Brown Band show for a venue, and kind of just taking a look, dividing the emails resulting ticket revenue by how many people we emailed. And so for that Kenny Chesney email, the value of a single email address was $47. And the Zach Brown Band email address was $44.
So you're saying if you had 1,000 emails, you made $44,000 off that mailing.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's only tickets. That doesn't include merch. That doesn't include food and beverage, parking, et cetera.
And so these are for established artists, but if you take a look, I know y'all had Todd Snyder on your show recently, and he's just a great example of somebody who really has cultivated a community. And so for him, and I don't have any insight into his numbers, but his numbers are probably a fourth or a fifth of that. However, it doesn't change the fact that there's a tangible value to every single email address you collect.
Well, certainly, but let me hold your feet to the fire on this, guys. Let's talk about list quality. You're talking about $44 per email. Now, here's what I see a lot of bands do. It's a band in Sweet Lips, Tennessee, let's say, and they're going to email something to Seattle, Washington on the other side of that email is not going to be worth $44
exactly
for a local show.
Yep, you got to segment. You got to understand.
So let's go deeper on segmenting.
Sure.
Talk about what that is and how people can do it.
And this isn't just email, this can be social as well, and just understanding that you have to message the appropriate message to the right audience. And so spending the time, taking that extra step in order to, invite the right people to your Facebook event. To your point, if they don't even live in the city or drivable, it's actually turning them off for when you are in their city.
And we're all surrounded by a relentlessly large and growing number of marketing messages. So it really does make the right message at the right time, the right channel with a clear call to action more important than ever. And the artists that do it well, they do a better job of filling rooms than the ones that do not.
Who's doing it really well? You mentioned a couple, but any other names that we would know?
I think Pretty Lights did a great job just gathering email addresses. I mean, just better than most, giving your music away because you're going to monetize the relationship at the ticket sale. I think Wade Bowen is another example of somebody who's done a terrific job of really building their community. And Eric Church, I think, is somebody who's gotten larger, recently, but, just in the mid-2000s, just did a really great job cultivating his community.
So these would be good people to go sign up for their list right now, watch what they're doing, and then try to model that.
Absolutely. And even some of the bigger artists, I just remember there was a huge pop artist, and years ago they started doing webinar Wednesdays. Every single Wednesday, they just made a short 1 to 2 minute YouTube video, and they did it for years before they got big. And that's just a perfect example of there are good examples like that out there.
You're listening to Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the music business. With me today, I've got two guests. Brian Bauer, he's Director of Sales and Marketing for Rockhouse Partners, and Joe Kustelski, CEO of Etix. We are talking about how to sell more tickets to your live shows. So segmenting is an issue, just basically wrong message to the wrong people. That's probably the number one email mistake. And any others that you see people make?
A lot of emails come out and they're not optimized for mobile. We found that nearly 50% or something of emails are open through their mobile phones, and that probably increases closer to the event weekend if it's a single event for the year. Understanding that you want to make it for the most part a single column email so people aren't pinching and pulling to try and read it on their phones. Clear call to action above that, the fold, so people aren't scrolling on down to try and find exactly what they should do.
I think one thing that many artists can do is, and many don't do, is just make sure that they ask the promoter or the venue after they play a show for the email list. Very few people go to a venue just for the sake of going to a venue. I mean, the thing about the artists is they're the content that brings people into the building, and it is certainly worth their while just to ask, please send us a list of all the people who purchased tickets for this event. And I think more often than not, you'll find venue owners who are controlling that database, they're willing to work with you. As a ticketing company, I cannot do that. At Etix, your brand, your data, your dollars, the venue, our client owns that relationship with the fan. But if they choose to do so, they can share that list of attendees with the artist.
So you're saying a venue who collects the email address will actually share that with the artist?
It does not happen all the time, but if you're an artist and you're trying to build your email database, you'd be silly not to ask. So if the venue wants you to come back, if they want to sell more tickets than they did the last time, it does not hurt them for you to continue to cultivate your audience of people that had that Kodak moment in their room watching you perform on stage.
And it's totally mutually beneficial, right? It's like if you're the venue, you now have extra marketing reach just because that artist is pushing the message out there for you.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other email tricks?
Personalization, that's for starters. I mean, you want to make sure that not only are you segmenting and making sure that people can read it on their mobiles, but, use those merge tags, right, where you can kind of insert a first name, or maybe they attended a recent show, so thanks for attending our, so-and-so show at 3rd and Lindsley. Thanks, you might be interested in this one as well, that kind of thing.
Contesting, just one thing that we found works really well is when you do it, there's a number of tools, and Brian can probably speak to this specifically more than I can, but I do know that we have got a terrific response rate when, after people fill out a simple contest form, we say, you know what, share this with your friends, and basically ask them to dime out people that they know likes the artist, and people do it more than you would think.
And also, when you're done with the contest and you've captured a lot of email addresses from that contest, send them an email. Sorry you lost, but here's $10 off to the show. That kind of thing. So they're interested, so just capitalize on it.
How often should you send email? There, I'm sure, is a sweet spot, and know that I've had a lot of bands that mail me that go way over that.
So certainly from a venue standpoint, I think that for the most part, if you're a rock club, you're going to have a weekly email or a bi-weekly email or a monthly email. I think the cadence, if you're a venue, is more important than anything. And certainly if you're an artist, I think the most important point is relevance. You've got to have something to say. If it's a monthly update, something better have happened that month, and there better be some sort of clear call to action. And when you're cultivating an artist database, I think our experience is it's better to, if there's nothing to say, don't abuse the list. Just again, because people get so many emails and so many messages.
You guys have any examples of abuse? Because I don't think anybody who's ever sent an email, pushing that send button, knows that it's abuse, but certainly we've all seen that.
The biggest way that we measure abuse is in incredibly small open rates. And so I know from some artists, I get messages when they're playing a Northeastern tour and there's not a single thing in there that's actionable for me. And it does cause me to unsubscribe. So I just think you see it in the open rates and the click rates and the overall lack of engagement, and certainly in the lack of ticket sales.
I'm going to have you define those things. Open rate.
Open rate is the number of people who pick that email out of their inbox and click open and read the email.
And then there's what we call a click-through.
Click-through rate, which means that they click on a piece of content in the email. So that means that they click a buy tickets, buy music, buy merch button. That's why we always encourage people to make very simple, clear calls to action. Most emails are read on a mobile phone right now, but it changes the way that you design things. If you're an artist, you're not designing for a mouse click anymore. You're designing for touch. You're designing for somebody to take their finger and tap their phone.
You're listening to Music Business Radio. Your backstage pass to the music business. I'm David Hooper, your host, and with me today I've got two guests. Brian Bauer is Director of Sales and Marketing for Rockhouse Partners. Joe Kustelski, the CEO of Etix. We're talking about email marketing. When we come back, we're going to keep talking about email marketing, but also talk about social media. More from these guys when we're back on Music Business Radio.
This is Neela from the Lumineers. You're listening to Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the music biz.
Coming to Marathon Music Works Thursday, May 8th, Spoon.
Got no time for the messenger. Got no regard for the thing that you don't understand. You got no fear of the underdog.
Tickets go on sale tomorrow at 10 a.m.
I said don't ever, cause it's gonna keep them hanging around. Never.
Tickets available by phone at 877-4-FLY-TIX, online at marathonmusicworks.com, or at the venue box office. Spoon, live at Marathon Music Works.
I love you when you're singing that song, and I got a lump in my throat, cause you're gonna sing the words wrong.
Hi, this is Vance Joy, and you're listening to Music Business Radio.
From Nashville, Tennessee, it's Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the music business. I'm David Hooper, your host, and with me today, Joe Kustelski, the CEO of Etix, and also Brian Bauer. He's Director of Sales and Marketing for Rockhouse Partners. They work with a lot of great people, Lollapalooza, X Games, Churchill Downs, Nashville Predators, just to name a few. I gave the tease, guys, we were going to talk about social media, but I want to put it in conjunction with a story. You've got a great one about the X Games in Austin.
Yeah, so X Games Austin was a really unique one for us just because it's actually the racetrack Circuit of the Americas down in Austin, Texas, put in a bid to ESPN, who owns X Games, to host the Summer X Games. And it was boiled down from about, I think, 30 different cities to Austin, Detroit, Chicago, and Charlotte. And so it became like an Olympic-style bid process where we were using social media to sell a city to ESPN and the world to vote on where they wanted to see the biggest action sports event in the world, where its home should be for the next several years.
And I think that's a great thing for any musician to study, because you're really talking about what gets people excited and what gets them to take action. That's something that can help any musician fill any venue regardless. So kind of looking outside of music into the sporting event. Google is great for this. Google Fiber right now is going to different cities and getting them to vote, and it gets the buzz going, and then it gets engagement up in a big way.
That's a great grassroots example, and I think the X Games initiative was similar in many ways. People didn't exactly know, in many cases, what it meant for the X Games to come to their city, so you had to lay it out for them. So do you want to be part of one of the biggest televised alternative sports events in the world? And we found different ways to reach out to different communities and really pull them together and, like, to your point, drive them to action. They had to vote with their mouse, with their phone. They had to find ways to support the overall efforts that we were doing in conjunction with the city of Austin.
So you've got your social proof. All the Austinites vote for Austin. The X Games come to Austin. Then what?
Well, so a big part of that process was actually activating entertainers and the people who already have kind of a built-in large network. And so this kind of goes back to what we were talking about of, what artists can do. And so it was almost a win for artists to be involved in this because they got their brand out there to a new audience. And so we were working with a DJ group, Candyland, that we were working with. Got up to like Matthew McConaughey and Brooklyn Decker and Kevin Lyman from Warped Tour. I mean, these are people that are really heavily followed on Twitter and Facebook. And so what we did was we just made it easy for them to kind of share the message. So we created these things that we call digital activation kits, which at its essence is just pre-written social copy and some branded photos that they can copy and paste. We'll even go onto their own social, take a look at kind of how their tone of voice is, how they're phrasing things to make it sound as if they're just putting it out themselves. But, they can change it as they see fit. It's just a great opportunity to, leverage those networks for people involved to get the word out there.
And just, I think it, just the artists and celebrities that activated for the X Games win for the city of Austin, I think they illustrate a great point, and that is that if you're an artist, just making sure that you are working with the festivals and the venues and the events that you're playing, because those festivals and events and venues, they'll remember you and that you did step up, and they follow their own social media feeds. If you tag them or if you like them, if you follow them, they'll remember that.
You're listening to Music Business Radio. I'm David Hooper, your host. With me today, Brian Bauer of Rockhouse Partners and Joe Kustelski of Etix. We're talking about online marketing, social media, email marketing, and X Games has something really exciting this year.
Yeah, so X Games, earlier we were talking about how these events are just so much more than just a sporting event, that they've really turned into almost like a music festival as well. Some of the bands that they have playing, Flaming Lips, Kanye West, Pretty Lights are the headliners, and there's a pretty cool contest that we're working on here in the next week or so. We'll be launching it, and it's the opportunity for bands to enter and play live at X Games Austin. I think they're choosing the top 8 bands to play there, and then they'll be voted and kind of narrowed down into 2. The winner gets $25,000.
And how can somebody get involved with that?
They just go to xgamesaustin.com and they can find the Battle of the Bands on there, the info, and we'll be promoting it on X Games Austin social as well.
And what does it take to win that? Is it music related, or is it more promotion and get your act with social media and marketing together?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? So back when I worked at Universal for a summer, I was doing some music video stuff, and I connected with Nigel Dick, and he had explained that basically a great music video. You can watch it with the sound turned off and it's still a great music video, but the best music videos also have great music to it. So I think that for this opportunity, you're going to have the good music and you're going to have the good promotion.
Brian, I want to get into the mechanics of how a band could win the X Games contest. And it's not necessarily the X Games contest, because there are these contests going on all around the country. I know our flagship station, WRLT, has one every year, sometimes a couple every year. Hard Rock Cafe has had these competitions. A lot of people do. It's a great way to publicize a venue and also bands. So let's talk about how to win them.
Sure, yeah. So basically the way that you get into the top 8 is you got to get your friends to vote for you. So the mechanics of the actual platform that we've helped build, I don't know if you spend any time on Reddit, for example, super popular platform, and it's essentially a vote up, vote down. And the bands that get the most votes are, they make the grade. Past that, it gets narrowed down to both online voting and on-site voting. So when you're playing, you're playing for your dough as well.
So it's kind of like high school.
Oh, yeah.
It is a little bit like that, but it does reward the bands that have cultivated an active engagement with their audience.
Well, let's take it back to what you said, Joe, about the artist activation kit. Every artist should have one of these, and that would make voting a whole lot easier, wouldn't it? Absolutely. Hey, send out this Twitter message to all your followers. Post this on Facebook. Send this to your relatives.
Yeah, versus do all that, but you write it yourself. It's like just tee it up, make it easy.
And there are some artists that are incredibly proactive and do that. But again, it's tough in many cases, or it seems less likely to happen than it should. So anything you can do to get that helps everybody.
Let's get to the harsh reality of the music industry, fellas. We're talking talent. We're talking social media. We're talking friends. What if somebody only has the talent? Is there hope for them?
I guess I kind of break it down where, when I moved to Nashville, I was sort of taking a look at, I was in Manhattan. I'd spent some time in LA, and I was just kind of thinking about, what's the difference with the artist landscape. And, New York, I felt like you could kind of make your way in New York just sort of with your own grit a little bit. You didn't necessarily have to be the most talented, but you would hustle and you kind of make it. LA, I felt like if you're an artist and you kind of walk into a room, everybody kind of takes a look to see if you're somebody. You don't necessarily have to be the most talented. You can have a little bit more sizzle than steak and still probably do pretty well. And then here in Nashville, when I got here, you have to have the talent to back it up. I mean, there's nothing like, you throw a rock, you hit about 10 amazingly talented players. So with that kind of in mind, I think that you have to have a little bit of substance and in the way that you kind of promote yourself. And, if you're a Nashville-based artist, you'll probably have a better chance of having people take you a little bit more seriously, I think. I don't know, Joe, anything to add?
No, just finding the right project, finding the right home for whatever it is. I mean, if you've got talent, but you don't have the ability to cultivate an audience, then there might be a great spot in a band for you to be a part of. But I mean, the marketing piece is really it's just so critical to, to what we do. Find festivals, find others that can help be a vehicle for your talent.
It sounds like a good opportunity for a partnership if you're the brawn and the other guy's the brains, or if you're the talent, the other guy's the marketing. If you can find that, there's an opportunity there. A lot of good marketers here in town.
Yep, absolutely. And there's also a number of great tools that you can use. So some of my favorite ones are Bandcamp and Topspin. They've got tools that allow you just very simply to sell your recorded music, sell your merchandise, and also if people simply want to listen to your music, collect an email address for a free download or whatever it is. So there are some really good tools out there right now. I'd say more so now than ever before.
You're a ticketing company. How important is the live show today?
Live show is more important than everything. That is the point where every fan, the average fan is going to go to 2 shows over the course of the year. And again, that's where they have their Kodak moment where they pull all their friends together and they spend their entertainment dollars at the live event. And maybe the takeaway though is that, and we mentioned the term collaboration point, now more than ever, there's so much competition for entertainment dollars. It's finding a way to put the fan, the venue, the promoter, the artist, the brands, all to work together. And the more alignment you get there, the better the end result is going to be. I think more than anything, that is that's really the important nexus in our industry right now.
That's the secret sauce.
It is kind of the secret sauce. It is whatever part of the equation you are, building that alignment, because it's where the data and the dollars are being transacted.
Data and dollars. That sounds awfully corporate. When we come back, I want to talk about something else awfully corporate that scares the bejeebies out of bands, and that's sponsorship. I've got two guests today, Brian Bauer, Director of Sales and Marketing for Rockhouse Partners, and also Joe Kustelski, CEO of Etix. More from these guys when we come back on Music Business Radio.
Now I'm smoking into Texas with a hammer down and a rockin' little combo from the guitar town.
This is Emmylou Harris, and you're listening to Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the biz.
Friday, June 27th, the historic Ryman Auditorium welcomes Dave Rawlings' Machine.
Young boy, done your bed, I went and did you wrong.
Gillian Welch, John Paul Jones, Willie Watson, and Paul Coward join Dave Rawlings for an evening of distinctive picking, high lonesome songs, and many other high-caliber acoustic entertainments.
I hear them all, I hear them all, I hear them all. I hear the tender words from Zion, I hear Noah's waterfall. See the gentle Lamb of Judah sleeping at the feet of Buddha.
Tickets to Dave Rawlings' Machine at Ryman Auditorium go on sale this Friday at 10 a.m. at all Ticketmaster outlets, the Ryman box office, and Ryman.com.
I'm an old-time telegraph man. I came here with a simple job to do.
Sponsored by Nissan, proud partner of Ryman Auditorium.
Put the gun down. I'm a set fire to the whole damn house. Put it down, put it down, put it down, put it down.
Hey, it's ZZ Ward, and you're listening to Music Business Radio.
From Nashville, Tennessee, this is Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the music business. I'm David Hooper, your host. With me today, Brian Bauer, he's Director of Sales and Marketing at Rockhouse Partners. Also, Joe Kustelski, CEO of Etix. Joe, we finished the last section talking about live events. It's so important today, and even with all this digital that we're talking about, people still like to be next to another person.
They do like to be next to another person, and I think, the late 90s, we saw just a tremendous number of CD sales, and then the MP3 comes along, and that starts to wane. You have file sharing, and really since then, everything has been moving towards the live event. And I think what makes the live event so important right now is that is the moment when you have, the alignment of the fan, the venue, the ticketing company, the promoter, the brand, and the best live events are going to have alignment from every single one of those players.
I think it's also like a full body contact of your music. You can see them, touch them, smell them, hear them. It's not just one sense, like just hearing on a CD or just seeing on a picture.
Exactly, and there's something incredibly important from a psychological standpoint as well. So when you hear about an event, we look at something we call the event life cycle. And so that's from the moment you hear about an event to the moment it goes on sale, to the moment you print out your printed home ticket, to the moment, the days leading up to the show when everybody gets, basically you start connecting with your friends, make sure that you're going to meet up for drinks beforehand. You go to the show, but wait, it's not over yet. Then there's this phase called the afterglow, and that's when you're at work the next day or 2 days later on Monday, and you sit there and you tell people, this was the experience that I had. Your ears might still be ringing, but it really is what makes the live event so truly special.
And you've got maybe 48 hours there right after your event where people are still kind of living that dream and remembering what an amazing time they had, and that's where you want to kind of strike, and that's where you get a chance to sell your next show.
From a marketing standpoint, during the afterglow, that 48 hours after a live event, it is critically important. Number one, to remind people what a great time that they had, show them pictures, let them listen music, let them see videos, and then ask them to buy a ticket. And the other thing is for your brands. Your brands, the sponsors for any live event, they were there, they remember what it was like, and you are already selling for next year.
Let's talk about the changing face of sponsorship. I think bands at one time, 10 or 20 years ago, let's say, no way would they have taken sponsors. They would have thought, this is completely selling out. But nowadays, turn on the television, and that's how new music is broken. You've got commercial placement, you've got film and TV, and also the sponsorship just in general. How do you feel that has changed, and why are bands so accepting of this right now?
I mean, my take, as from my kind of playing days was, the only kind of real money we saw from from record sales was when we were selling them at live shows ourselves, and the label would, kind of give us some stock, and we'd be able to kind of just hawk it at the, at the end of the show. But, we were really actively looking for licensing because that's where the money was. It's really, really, that's what kind of let us survive and go to the kind of the next show, is trying to get that commercial, get that, placement on Rock Band or MTV or whatever.
And I think for a long time now, every venue has had beer, liquor, and energy in the venue. And so eventually, I think, certainly a number of the liquor companies have gotten incredibly creative with what they'll do to launch new liquor brands, aligning with artists to do so and to immediately give them a brand association that's very positive for their beverage of choice. I think that one thing that has really struck me as profound is how much more integrated the brands are into the experiences around artists. So we describe that event life cycle, certainly with some of the artists, some of the festivals that we work with. I think we work with Tortuga, and they have a number of partners that are liquors, beers, and they're associated with that event all the way throughout the event life cycle, from the time tickets go on sale all the way through to the afterglow. And they're just showing a much higher level of savviness when it comes to connecting with fans.
Something you just said kind of triggered something to me. I think that artists, because we don't have that major label infrastructure, they've been forced to get better about business than they would have at one time. It used to be the artist was hanging out on the beach, go in the studio, week or two, record a record, go tour. These days, it's a full-on 365, 52 weeks a year kind of thing, and I think they're open to sponsorships because of that. It's money on the table.
It's money on the table.
You're listening to Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the music business. Brian Bauer is here, along with Joe Kustelski. Brian's with Rockhouse Partners, Joe's with Etix. And guys, I remember when I was growing up, when I wanted to go to a concert, and let's say the venue held 10,000 people, you would drive to different record stores, and each one of them would have a different section of the venue. And these days, of course, you go online, or even just in any store you go to, and they'll give you the best available seat. You don't have to go out and search. And I think about how far technology has come in ticketing. I'd love to know what you guys think is next for ticketing.
Sure. So, we've actually have a partnership with Stark RFID, and RFID is essentially, a lot of folks probably listening to this have been to Bonnaroo, and this is a technology that they've implemented these past couple of years, and it's basically a wristband that they can just swipe when they go in and out of Centeroo there, which is the
credit cards have it,
right? Yeah,
same technology.
Yep. So not extraordinarily groundbreaking per se, but what you can do with it in the sense of a live event is actually extremely interesting from a sponsor standpoint. And again, to bring up Bonnaroo, there's a car company that will give away a car to a registrant for the RFID. So I bought my RFID band, shows up in the mail, I log on to the website, and I enter in my data. So now the car company, Bonnaroo, if the artists potentially ask, maybe they'll get this data as well. But that's those are email addresses, and those are important touch points that can be used for future marketing. So then I show up to the event. So now I've got my band, and I'm checking in at different stages. And when I registered, I linked up my Facebook and my Twitter. And so now this is extra reach for Bonnaroo, because they now are getting all these messages put out there on the web that say, hey, I just checked in to see R. Kelly on the main stage and things like that never would have happened before.
There's more than a touch of irony in the fact that many VIP tickets at music festivals now have RFID tracking. So we hear all this noise on one side about the NSA and about how they're tracking people, and then on the other side you have people paying extra for the opportunity to be tracked as they go around major music festivals. But it's where things are going, and now it's an integral part of that experience, and there are ways to recognize and reward people if they participate in that. We'll see more of that going forward in venues.
And I imagine that tracking makes a marketing guy's job even that much tougher, because they know the return on investment they're getting for every dollar spent.
They do, and I think, for brands, Brian mentioned the fact that RFID prompts people to go online and typically fill out a form, tell them a little bit more about ourselves, and we've touched on demographics, but that really is where you start building a rich customer profile, but it does reveal whether or not you got a return on the investment you made in that event.
Speaking of events, you guys have a few events coming up.
Yeah, so we're actually debuting a new event for us, which is going to be a pretty cool opportunity, I think, for local music venues, concert promoters, music industry executives to all come together, have some beers, hang out, get to know each other. So not only do they get to kind of network with themselves, but also with ticketing experts and being able to kind of discuss industry trends and learn a little bit more about kind of what we're talking about, how to sell more tickets online, how to capture prospective buyers, how to enhance sponsorship value. So really, really important stuff. And so this first one we'll be doing is on April 1st. It's over at Emma's Bistro, which is in the Trolley Barns over by Pinewood Social. And the time is from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And we're proud to have a panel as well with Lightning 100's very own Justin Hamill, and he'll be moderating it. And it's going to be featuring Travis Janovich, who's Etix's founder, Billy Hardison, who's a promoter with about 20 years experience with Production Simple and headliners in Louisville, and more. And so we're really pretty thrilled about it. And this is going to be something that I think we're going to be doing on a recurring basis. We're trying to cap it so we get the best people in the room. So we're trying to limit it to just about the first 70 or so entry RSVPs. And you can learn more by going to rockhousepartners.com. And if you RSVP soon, actually right now, you will be able to get Uber Black Cards. We've partnered with Uber, which they are a transportation company, if you're not familiar with them. But we're
kind of like a taxi service.
Exactly. And so it's an app. Everybody who RSVPs get a free ride to the event or from the event. Again, if you RSVP right now, you'll get something called an Uber Black Card, which is a $20 free pass that we're hoping that the venues and the event promoters who attend our event, the Soundboard, will then use those cards to use as promotions for their own events. So we think it's kind of just an extra added value thing for folks who are attending.
And regarding the Soundboard, you know what? I mean, we live and breathe digital, online ticketing, digital marketing, but there really is no substitute for having a beer and having a face-to-face conversation. So many things are changing so quickly, and all of these pieces, if they really are going to work together, they're only going to happen with live conversations and relationships.
Well, thank you guys for coming by today. For more information, the website is rockhousepartners.com. Also, Etix, ETIX.com.
Correct.
.com. Any final thoughts?
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much. We
Pleasure,
really appreciate
fellas.
it.
We'll have to get together again soon. David Hooper here at Music Business Radio. Thanks for listening. Join me next week when I'll interview another industry guest.
Thanks for listening to Music Business Radio, a production of Tuned In Broadcasting Incorporated, Nashville, Tennessee. Recorded in the WRLT Lightning 100 studios. Music Business Radio is produced by Gary Crane, David Hooper, and Dan Buckley. Special technical assistance by Tom Hansen. With Pro Tools post-production by Justin Hamill and Dan Buckley. And Lester held the antenna. For information on syndication, guest booking, demo derby music, or downloading previous episodes, visit musicbusinessradio.com.
Music Business Radio.